Agentic AI and software development. Who am I? I'm Renee. Renee the Curious is what my AI agents call me because I like it. And but my real name is Renee Fournier, full name. And like you, I've built some things, free products or companies, a vehicle tracking business called GPS Police, which was acquired a few years ago, Grid Atlas, which is another GIS related application that's used in land lookup applications in Western Canada, and then more recently, Alberta Well Finder, which, as you can probably guess, helps you find wells in Alberta. Anyways, that's what I've done. That's where I've come from. And in the last 2.5 years, AI has completely changed how I work and what I can accomplish. And you probably feel similarly if you're using it in your work. What are we going to discuss today? 3 to 4 things. Chatbots versus agents. Okay, that's the easy part. Choosing the right model. So not the best model, not the cheapest model, not the biggest model, but the right model. And what do we mean by that? We'll see. And then some tips and tricks, things that I've learned myself, that I've learned from others watching YouTube, and maybe you have your own that you can share with me, share it with the rest of us, and we can all learn something together. And then looking ahead, the landscape is changing so fast that, you know, what's coming next is something that I think a lot of us wonder. I know I do. And so we're going to discuss that as well. So to get started, let's look at chatbots versus agents. And yes, there is lots of Nacho Libre in this talk. I hope you love Jack Black as much as I do. Chatbots. Who has used ChatGPT? Yeah, right. Everyone on planet Earth practically at this point. Your first experience using a chatbot, generative AI in a web browser typically, was probably asking a question, getting an answer, and being surprised at, wow, how did it do that? And then you ask sort of bigger and bigger questions. And when we apply it to programming, we start asking the chatbots programming questions. Now, which one you use? Maybe by, who has a favorite? Just, sir. Claude. Claude Opus, okay. The creme de la creme of software engineering tools. I think many of us would agree. Anyone else? Different one for software, sir?
ChatGPT 4.0 model.
Okay, cool. And sir? Yeah.
Like 4.5 for writing with ChatGPT.
Oh, okay. See, okay, cool. And are you using it in a code editor or like Cursor Windsurf? Or?
Through the website or app.
Through the website, okay. Yep.
Yeah, people can't see.
Okay, all right, good. So, you know, we're spoiled for choice, right? And I think I know I found that I have preferences, and I can't put my finger on it exactly why. Definitely for coding Claude, starting with 3.5, not so much 3.7, but now Sonnet 4 and Opus, amazing, chef's kiss. But they're not the only ones. Perplexity was one of the first that allowed you to do web searches, and it's still extremely good at that. And now pretty much all of them can do web search and do generative AI with images. But yeah, that's a chatbot. Of course, how it works isn't going to blow your mind. Although when you look at the source code, you may not be impressed at what Claude Sonnet 4 does. All right, so a sorting function, kind of skip past that too fast. Put a function inside the function, which has some interesting implications, but it does work. So this is what we did in the beginning. We use these chatbots in software engineering because they're simple. Put in a question, paste some source code, please fix this bug, refactor it, make it TypeScript friendly, add JS docs, you know, blah, blah, blah. So you put something in and get a little piece of code out, and it's like Lego, and you slap them together in your code editor, and that's what we did until we got into agentic coding, which is what we're gonna really focus on today. So simple and free-ish, right? You can use a lot of the chatbots for free, like the weaker models at least. And if you do subscribe, you get pretty well unlimited use if you're in the web browser. Why is that? Because they know how much you're going to use it. They have the data, the analytics, that they can say 20 bucks a month and, you know, knock yourself out. Agentic coding is not free, but we're going to look at that as well. What does that mean, and what does it cost, and what is it worth? So what's the downside of using a chatbot for coding? Copy and paste, right? Copy and paste your code in, you get the result, take it back to the code editor. So you're moving code back and forth. And in the beginning, it was so marvelous and wonderful and magical. I mean, nobody was complaining like, "Are you crazy?" Like, it's writing code for me that actually works. The other problem with using bots is that this is actually good and bad. They don't have context regarding your project. So it only knows what you tell it, which is what has led to the rise of prompt engineering in many cases. One of the reasons why prompting is so important is that you want to tell it all the things that it needs to know to give you the best possible answer, right? And with agentic coding, that's, in my experience, that's increasingly less important. Does that even make sense? It's less important in many cases. And in fact, sometimes less context can give you better results. Competition. Are we saying that agentic coding, and we'll look at the different kinds, is just better than using a web-based chat platform? Not always. Has anyone had the experience that I've had where you're using agentic coding to solve a problem in a project and it's just not it's not getting there, right? Yeah, like we all do. That's like probably why, yeah, maybe why you're here too. This happens to me like every day. And sometimes what I found is I'll go to Claude, I'll drag and drop like 20 to up to 25 files from my project into Claude. It's not working and it can't see anything else. And it seems to, in some cases, actually figure it out better than if it has access to the entire project. Has anyone else had this experience? Am I the only one? Okay. So sometimes a lack of context is good, or a restricted context can be effective. I was trying to think of an example. What's the difference between a chatbot and an agent? Well, they both have brains. We can say an agent has a body, so it can do things. And when I was looking for a definition, I asked somebody and it gave me this one, which I think is pretty good. I would agree with this, right? I don't have to read it for you, but that's basically what we're talking about. Now, why this is an important definition, I think, as we try to understand the progress in software development, is that it's not tied to an editor. Like, this definition doesn't depend on using VS Code or Windsurf per se. In fact, as we'll see later, we may not even be using editors, in the next in the future. We'll see. I don't know. Can't be dogmatic, but it's interesting what's coming next. So now let's look at agents. Okay, I'm going to gamify this. I'm going to show you 6 logos for agents, okay, in order, and just tell me what they are, okay? If like, just shout it out. We can get extra points. Okay, first one.
Herder, wait,
Okay, good.
later. When's it? What's it? Oh, rather.
Who said Replit? Yeah, you're right. So this is Replit agent. So the logo's a little different. Oh, amazing. I had a hard time finding this logo. So they're getting agentic. You all win. And finally, yes. Who uses Cline? Oh, okay. It's a sibling, right? Yeah. So I use Cline a lot. So it's an extension to VS Code, which is what the demo is going to be using actually. And again, we all love our favorite tools. I really love Cline because now a lot of them do this now. They let you choose, but it's very easy to switch models like while you're working. What has made agentic programming, AI programming possible? Well, up until November of last year, the editors that were sort of agentic had to write their own tools for reading files, connecting to remote things, databases. And so you had this situation, and we still do to some extent, where if you have a code editor, whatever, that you want to do this, you have to write your own adapters. Until November 24th of last year, when Anthropic, who we love for Claude and a host of reasons, actually, Claude Code, Sonnet, really open sourced MCP, Model Context Protocol. And what did that do? It turned this, so a zillion USB adapters, type A, B, C, D, E, F, G, into one standard. And so now increasingly our code editors and command line terminals actually are able to connect to other tools using a single standard. And that is accelerating the progress that I think that we see. Who is using MCP in some fashion in your development? Okay, good. So when we talk about agentic AI, it doesn't necessarily require MCP, but it's like, why wouldn't you use a standard now? It opens the door to incredible possibilities, as we'll see we'll see shortly.
And Google just announced A2A. So we're adding to more adapters again.
Oh, okay. Okay. Oh, A2A. What's that? Oh, okay. Okay. I was thinking you're going to say Gemini CLI, but that's a different thing. Okay. A2A. They just announced it yesterday. So that's one of the later slides I had to swap out. Yeah. Like I was saying to Steve, the content in this presentation has an extremely short shelf life. So enjoy the USB cables while they last. The next part, choosing the right model. What do we mean by the right model? In 1837, a book was published that described the experience of this home invader, adorable little girl that wandered into this house and tried 3 different chairs and 3 different beds and 3 different bowls of porridge, and one was too hot and the other porridge was too cold. But finally, she found one that was just right. And we can say just right for her. So we're spoiled for choice when it comes to chatbots, tools, editors, but we're also spoiled for choice when it comes to models. I can't say that I totally agree in my own experience that, for example, Claude 4 Sonnet thinking is not as good as, I don't know, some of the ones that are ranked higher. Maybe they are theoretically, who knows, but they're all getting better and better. This is actually a generalized weighted index. So it includes a lot of things that are not software coding related. Here's the coding one. Any of these bars jump out at you or that you disagree with?
More about just the gap. Why is the VIATEC gap between 59 and
4 points. They actually do dig into that, but I don't know. I don't know. I just look at the bars and I'm like, okay, my model is left of the middle. Sir?
Yeah. For the document, or how are you doing this? So you every agent very apply for question about the series of questions to the great results.
Yeah. Yeah, and more or less. I can't say more than that. I mean, they are standardized tests that, it's same problems and the results are then like, did you get it right? Like, can you write a distance function with types that's type safe, blah, blah, blah. And like, if it does it, then it wins. And if it can't, it can't. And I think we're getting like 63. The SWE bench scores, a lot of the better models are hitting over 70. Intelligence versus price. Now, if you don't have to pay for your API usage, I don't doubt that O3 Pro and Claude 4 Opus are the best. Are they the best value? Yeah, it depends. That depends on, a bunch of things. But what I find, sir, yeah,
Low speed.
bingo. I like what you just asked because that's what I'm getting to. In my experience, free is ideal, but time is money. Money is time. So the bigger the model, the slower the thinking, reasoning, computation, right? Why is that? Well, you probably all know this because you're software engineers, but the larger the model, the larger the parameter count, the higher the floating point precision of the weights. It's just more computationally expensive. They have to load it onto larger GPU clusters or whatever they're using, language processing units. And it just takes more energy, more compute. It takes longer. And you pay more for it. So the one here that I think is worth really keeping your eye on, can you guess what my favorite is? Like, yeah, it's hard to tell because they're kind of all clustered together, but this slide gets a little bit. Gemini 2.5 Flash is, for the price and time, is shockingly good in a lot of cases, in my experience. And what's really interesting that the gentleman over on the other side said, is it speed? I mean, it's more than twice as fast as most of them. It's not twice as smart, but for, I would argue, most of the applications, most of the things that we're using it for, or that we're using AI in agentic relationships for, it's good enough. And because it can generate tokens, 2 to 3 times faster than some of the other bigger models, if you get to the right answer 3 times faster, that's worth something. And then if you don't, like what I do is I switch to something bigger, 2.5 Pro, Claude 4 Sonnet, or maybe Opus, although I don't have a use for Opus. So in the end, this is where we are. We are choosing our porridges. And there's no right porridge, but maybe there's a right one for your project. But I think that with what we're going to see in a few minutes, we don't have to be stuck to one model. Who actually in your professional programming capacity, who's using more than one provider in your source code? Oh, okay. Well, I'm speaking to the choir then. Yeah. Yeah. All right. No argument. Okay, so this is a series of not like 10 commandments, but 10 suggestions. All right, and take them with a huge grain of salt. They're my suggestions. A lot of people share them on YouTube, and some of them I got from others for sure. But broken up into 3 categories. So setup, development, and then other things. Regarding setup, system prompts. Who is using a system prompt in your coding? Okay, so let me show you what one looks like. A system prompt is kind of like, I'll bring it over, there we go. It's kind of like a business card that you give to the AI that it always is aware of, no matter what it's doing. When you write a system prompt, you can tell it about yourself, but more importantly, maybe tell it about your preferred stack and technologies. Like for me, I pretty much always use MapLibra for mapping, Stripe for e-commerce. My database is PostgreSQL or PostGIS for spatial. I use Supabase, which is a great platform for that, but it also does all storage. So anyways, I tell it all of this, so it always knows that when it's suggesting it's writing code for me, use these, like without me having to say in every prompt, like, oh, by the way, the database is this. It already knows that. And of course, if it changes, I can change the system prompt. And then when I start a new chat or I use the API, it knows to keep that. One of the other nice things that you can do in your system prompt is tell it how to answer. I don't want it to be too verbose. It can be funny. And then, yes, elaborate in more detail. I mean, as you can read it. This one I find very important. Be opinionated. This is, I think, one of the most important things with the models. Again, in my experience, they try to be, I don't want to use the word politically correct, but statistically sound. So for example, if they're trained on all of the stuff that is public in GitHub, you're going to get an average of all of those projects. And so a lot of the code that these models generate, I wouldn't say it's not good, but it's kind of like averagey, right? And if you want to stand out, if you're shooting above average, sometimes you need it to just to be opinionated, direct, or unvarnished. Yeah. And with front-end development, for example, the most popular library or framework, whatever you want to call it, is React. But and I am a React developer, most of the people I talk to who've used other front-end frameworks agree that React is not maybe the best. It is a good one to know if you want to get a job. And also because the models have been trained on front-end software, they're biased towards generating React code, right? I see some of you nodding, or Ruby code, because Ruby's been around forever. And there's nothing wrong with Ruby or React, but if you're a Svelte developer, like I am, and prefer to be, then, when you go to a live coding website like Bolt New or Lovable, my experience in the beginning was I'm like, make this thing in Svelte, make this, coding, and it's like, it just generates React. Like it's gotten better, but anyways, That's a system prompt. Let's go back to the other suggestions. Text replacements. On a Mac, in system preferences, you can create shortcuts where if you type like a couple letters, it will replace that with a longer sentence. And so this is a very handy way to create like custom prompts or like partial prompts. Like you might prompt your agent something like da 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 da, and then one of my text replacements is :CQ, which I type like 100 times every day, and it probably should be part of my system prompt, but or maybe it is. It's like, do you understand my intent with 100% perfect confidence? If not, ask clarifying questions, right? So that's one, and there's others. In Windows, I don't think it's built in, but there's a utility called Phrase Express, which does something similar. File path in the header. If you're using Agentic AI in your code, putting the actual path at the top of the file in as a comment can help the AI to understand the relationship between files and components without it having to traverse your entire file hierarchy. And yeah, I see some nodding, so I'm not crazy. Like, this has been my experience, right? Like, it feels like doing this helps it, like Jerry Maguire, help me, help you. Document everything, and not just for yourself, but actually for the AI. So we all know what a project requirements document is now, PRD, typically written in Markdown. It's maybe the plan for your project. Put that in the repo. The agent can read that periodically. Different agents, tell it to read that thing. But then you might do PRDs for features or for migrations, and documenting it is with the agents is very easy, and it can be effective for helping them in the future. Use version control like crazy. I think in the past, it was more common for us as developers to do quite a bit of work before committing. And now, if I can accomplish one thing and the application doesn't completely break, commit, right? Sir?
Have you got to the point where you have like the agents doing the ads and the commits themselves, or do you any
Yeah, I'm not brave enough to do that yet, but I think maybe that's the next thing I'm going to try. Have you done that? Is that what are you doing that yet, or?
I have not, but
I think like, okay, this is an interesting point. I think if we could say like, if we're doing like feature branches, that's, like go off and
it's what I was like thinking of. Yeah, like every time you start
the decast. If your DMs broke up, we got like Scatcast, force our ECast can like, start the feature branch.
oh, that's a great idea. Yeah, and then maybe write tests after it, and yeah, on the looking ahead part, let's talk about that again. There's something there that I've been thinking or wondering about myself. Yeah, good thought. Agents are coworkers. I don't know why I wrote that, but it just feels like they're not servants per se. They feel more like colleagues, or some people would say junior developers, although I'm not so sure they're junior anymore. I think I'm the junior one. Make a plan. So yeah, this is back to PRDs. How many people are familiar with PRDs? Okay. All right, good. So a PRD, for those of you that maybe aren't, and yeah, we're good for time, actually. We're doing good. This is a PRD for a project that I did. Well, air quotes, did a couple days ago for today. And what it does is describe what I want to build, a little bit of the technical stack stuff, how this game will work. Okay, so what is this? We're going to play this in a minute. It's Trivial Pursuit based on where you are in the world. Okay, so it uses geolocation, falls back to geo IP detection using your IP address. It uses an AI to both fetch questions and answers. All right. But I started drink my own Kool-Aid by creating this PRD. And then, of course, who created the PRD? It was an AI. It was Claude Sonnet 4. And so it did all of this. And then agentically, it wrote the application. So that's a PRD, and highly recommend it. And the nice thing about the PRD is when you stick it in your project, where's this one? Yeah, there it is. And as you develop more features, you can just tell the AI, hey, update the PRD, like just, periodically revise it.
Question.
Yep.
Not entirely familiar with PRD kind of process, but when you're developing that, it's like, you're working on an idea, and you're asking a co-pilot you through the process, the requirements, and some of the features, or how are you?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So I will use the web version of Claude Sonnet, or the app, the desktop version. It's a web wrapper, right? And I'll just start a conversation, say, hey, I want to, I mean, I actually said, like, I'm teaching an AI workshop in Victoria, and I would like to make a game that we can play together based on Trivial Pursuit. And then I just sort of go back and forth. You have some suggestions? I want to use geolocation. And then it's like, okay, I like that, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, basically. And then it generates the PRD. So it doesn't do it right away. I kind of go back and forth. And then finally it generates the PRD, and I can look at it. And this is something that I think we all agree. We need to read what they generate. Definitely read everything. And then it's like, yeah, it's good. Or maybe revise this. No, it's good. And then that goes into VS Code, and we begin working using the agents. So that's why it's not a competition. I kind of think the chatbots definitely have a place, because it's like a clear sandbox that has no bias. It just knows what you tell it. And then we bring it into, in my case, I bring it into VS Code and start using Cline to go from there. Okay, in development, in the ring. If your app has an error, copy and paste it from the developer console or terminal. Just paste it and don't say anything. Don't editorialize. This is where, if we're doing a lot of prompting, we might think that we should be prompting like throughout. Often it's better not to, has been my experience. So if it's in the context of developing a feature and it's run into an error, I just copy and paste the error and let it continue, and it fixes the error in most cases. It's crazy. Use voice dictation. And now I say this, not using voice dictation myself, I kind of just forget to do it, but hold down the microphone key and just start talking to it. The cost of input tokens is insignificant now. And so if we're doing agentic coding, use your voice and, tell it everything you want it to do, make it pretty simple, use ShadCN or Bulma CSS, blah, blah, blah. It can save time too. Give context sometimes. We had this conversation before we started the lecture. Why sometimes? Because the agents might have a better idea than you or me. Often they do. And so giving too much context, or at least limiting the scope, can actually give a worse result than simply saying, here you go. This is what I want to do. What do you think the best way, or top 3 best ways to accomplish this would be? I mean, maybe you don't always want to do this. Maybe you do know what you want, or I do, but sometimes less restrictions is good. Nudge smartly. So get something wrong, just, yeah, that's wrong. Fixes it. Keep it simple, silly. Small files. The models love small files. Anything over 500 lines of code, they get much worse at understanding intent. So it's good. I mean, this is true for regular programmers. Like if you're on a team and, you open a file, it's like 5,000 lines. Like, come on, like refactor. It's hard to cognitively ingest that much information. And models are the same. If you have files broken up into smaller bits and pieces, and the file names are intelligently named, or if they're components, and you put their name at the top, I don't know why, but the models seem to like chew through this really fast and understand the application better. Rotating models carefully. That has to do with if something isn't working, like if you're starting with Gemini 2.5 Flash, which is a very fast, lightweight, cheap model, and it's not working, I'll switch to Pro. And if that's still not working, I'll switch to Sonnet. And then usually it works. And it's not just about the money. It is really the time. It's just Flash is quick. So I don't automatically go for the biggest hammer. Rubber duck. Explain your problem to the AI even when you think you know the solution. This is kind of related to what was said earlier. Give context. Just not putting in a straitjacket too soon can be helpful. If you're in a conversation with a model in your code editor, Windsurf, Cursor, whatever, and it's not working, just start a new one. Like if it's not working, often it just gets into a loop sometimes and won't get to a solution. And I don't know why that is, but it just happens. So start a new conversation without context. Avoid rabbit holes, kind of similar. Read the code it writes. What is Big Max? It's back to the fact that the models have a bias based on the statistical distribution of programming languages, frameworks, and tools. And what that means is, yeah, you're going to get more React code unless you tell it specifically. And there's nothing wrong with Big Max or React code, but we have to know that the statistical bias is there, and sometimes we have to push back. Regarding pushing back, so AI seeks satisfaction, not truth. So it is a statistical people pleaser, not a truth-seeking missile. That's true, and sometimes, that's why we have to read the code, ask questions, learn, be curious, blah, blah, blah. Okay, now let's look at an example of this application. And actually, I'm going to show you what it ended up building. Okay, let's make this competitive. Maybe we'll draw a line maybe down here. Okay, so we're gonna be player 1 from this side over, and you guys are player 2. You people, okay? So player 1. These are not maybe hard questions if you've lived in Victoria a while. So, okay, we're player 1. What's the right answer?
Last year.
Oh, sorry, can't see it. Which annual festival in Victoria celebrates the history's heritage and culture? And choices are Rifflandia Music Festival, Victoria International Film, I can't read that, Kite Festival, and the Highland Games.
Yeah.
Really? Oh, we're right. We got a pie. Okay, player 2. Next question. Who was the first governor of this colony of Vancouver Island? Okay, if you don't get this right, we're going to revoke your passport. Douglas? Yeah? Incorrect. It was Richard Blanchard. Okay. Anyways, you get the idea. We can play this more later, but let's see how it built it. So I'll okay. So this runs at 3 times speed. There we go. So I'm writing the initial prompt, read the readme.md, blah, blah, blah. And as you can see, I'm using Gemini 2.5 through the Cline extension in VS Code. So I'm seeing how many tokens it's using and what my cost is for the overall session. Okay, we got to like the beginning. And so I started a new conversation because it accomplished what I wanted, and now it doesn't need to know all of the other stuff. So clear the context, start fresh. But again, read the PRD, MD. Now it's going to actually build it. And you'll remember the PRD actually includes TypeScript interfaces and whatnot. So there's some source code that it can refer to. Now, if you've been doing agentic programming, this is not going to blow your mind, but this is really what we're talking about. prompting, restarting, and in a moment or two, it's going to switch models. Any questions or thoughts while you watch it program?
Yeah, I'm completely unfamiliar with this PRD file. Why would you put source code in it? To like kind of sample the type of thing you want, or like what?
In the PRD? Well, I didn't actually. It generated it, but I think the reason is, when I had the conversation with it, I told it I'm going to be using this PRD in a different AI model. I tell the AIs that, like, you're not the only one that I'm seeing, and it will then, I think, sort of use source code, because if you think about it, source code is the most semantic thing, right? Like, Markdown is semantic, HTML semantic, but source code is really where the rubber hits the road. So I think that's why it did it in that case.
Okay. Is it standard like in general source code in a PRD?
I don't think so.
It's like an Agentic thing.
Uh, I, I, I I don't know. It doesn't always do it for me. Like it did in this case. So do you have a?
Just gonna say, I think for me, I usually do include, but it just depends. Like if it's something simple, I usually don't. But if it's like building an entire project where I'm writing stuff to the database, and I want to have like a Firestore or something, and I want to have a clear schema to define, I usually do include or some kind of depends on what I'm building.
I will, to answer your question in a different way. I agree. I do tell the models my database schema when I'm doing things related to the database. Like I'll have, typically in any project, I have a file. It doesn't have to be a markdown file. It can just be a text file, but it's all of the creation statements for the tables, all of the foreign keys, the indexes, the RPCs, blah blah blah. And oh, that's not in my slide, but I would say that is like the number one thing that I learned like a year ago is, holy smokes, if you tell the models the structure of your database, you almost don't need to tell it anything else. Because that, more than source code, that is the most semantic thing in your project, in my opinion.
You get really nitty-gritty by like tell it like, I want the creating table, yep, it did, or do you like it just automatically generate some of the eval things that they would normally include it for the database?
Yeah, both. Sometimes, yeah. Yeah, I don't like it when they put the timestamp stuff at the end of the table. It just drives me crazy. So like, I don't know why. We all have our things, but okay. Oh, it got to, yeah. So it's also mocking the data. It decided to do that itself because it couldn't get geolocation to work right away. Some strange reason. And now, as you can see, it's discovering like problems, and it's thinking about how to fix them. And in fact, yeah. So I'm still on Flash. Did it change models already? Or no? Okay. Or I mean, I was the one changing the model, but
Could we go back one second to that locked out of that?
sure. Well, I think so. Oops.
You don't have to stop it in video.
Okay.
I just realized,
Oh yeah, sure.
I find with the AI is very bad at not using mock data unless we specifically ask it, don't use mock data. And it will, like, if it has a little bit of profit trouble, it will just automatically fake it and not tell you. And you think it's working is like you start investigating why it's not really working.
Oh, that's fun. It's interesting. That was my experience with this. I didn't ask it to use mock data. Like even before it had that problem with geolocation, I was just reading the source code later, and it's like, it started mocking questions and answers. And it's like, no, I wanted you to use the AI to fetch the questions and answers from, well, actually, I wasn't sure which one to use. So I asked it, what's like a very inexpensive or, super cheap. And it's like, well, you can use this or that. And it ultimately chose Haiku from Claude, from Anthropic.
So a more abstract way,
Mhm.
Lenny. If the models are that good, understanding intent, they're really good at understanding your data model, right? What's the point of an application in its purest sense? Because if you can just ask, if I as a human had an interface to an agent to ask the question, well, what were the top 10 customers in this area now, what were their last invoices, right? What's the point in actually having an application where I as a human can actually navigate to that? Well, I can just ask the agent to go away, write the code, and give me the response. Ultimate thing, right?
Yeah.
Do applications in their current sense start to disappear from the landscape?
Maybe.
Well, and then do we? Well, I just trying to like take this a stage further. Like,
No.
what does it mean?
And that's the next slide actually, is looking ahead, because who here has noted or heard the announcement from Google regarding their new CLI for Gemini? Warp, the agentic terminal, which I love and I'm using, is now a code editor. Okay, so like, are we going to be using editors? I don't know. I mean, Claude Code has been doing this for a while in the terminal. Anyone use Claude Code? Okay, like exclusively, mainly.
No, I like tried it a few times and maybe find it as nice as Warp.
Oh, okay.
So I just agree.
Oh, you're using Warp for agentic coding. Oh, okay, interesting. Yeah, I tried it too, and I don't know. I still like VS Code. I don't know why the MCP stuff. It like, you can connect it to Supabase. It can read, like, this is the. I don't do it in this application or the project, but it if you have a database sitting out somewhere and you're local, these agents can actually talk to your database, like read all of the tables, create new ones, run migrations from your editor. That is like, and that's just the beginning. So back to your question, Steve, like, will we need like editors? Well, we don't actually. We don't need editors. I mean, if you like, the mouse pointing and clicking, and I have to say, like, this is nice to be able to see it think, see the source code, look at the application. I have the dev tools, the terminal down below. It's kind of squashed because I'm doing it on my MacBook. But I kind of like that input and feedback. Okay, it fixed a bug. And oh yeah, so I had to switch to Pro. Yeah, this can be like discussion time. Yeah, totally.
For Cline, I'm not really familiar with like this tool or extension, but I have a question about, like, is it just a subscription that you pay, or do you plug in your API key?
Oh yeah, that's good. I didn't show that. Yeah, so we go to the extensions tab, look up Cline. It's a free extension. You don't have to pay. They do have a commercial thing, I think, where they are basically kind of, they wrap other models and then you can pay them and then they give you the tokens. But what I do is just plug in my API key for Claude and Gemini, like, and then it's really nice. If it might have been just too fast, it flashed by. You can just click on this and then choose which provider and which model you want to use. So it's pretty nice. Yep.
Does it generate and run the unit tests?
If you want it to, yes.
Is this
Yeah, like as it's developing. Yes. Yes, it is. Sorry, I thought you meant like traditional, like a testing. No, yeah, as it's developing. So it's introspective. And this is, again, the nature of agentic systems, is they're not just generating code and walking away, they're checking. So you'll also see, well, here I'm checking, but it will start up a dev server inside VS Code and actually look at the HTML and CSS and click to do like testing to make sure these buttons work. That's actually what's got it stuck on geolocation, is it didn't work in that environment too well. And that might have been why I had to start mocking some of the data. I'm not sure.
Oh, is it using Playwright for the for the browser?
I don't know. I don't think so, but let me check maybe afterwards. Does someone know? Is it using Playwright? Anyone? Yeah.
I saw Playwright big file.
Oh yeah, that's that I start that with every project. That was me. Yeah.
You know how much money you spend on it?
Yeah, like a couple bucks.
I was a lower skill programmer developer, but just curious, like, I've used these quite a bit with others, Allable, etc. And I'm wondering, when you start this is an app for today,
how much context do you give it for what you want the ends to give you in the future? Meaning, like, we want to deploy this as a page on our website, or
We want to deploy this to the app store. Like, do you give it that context early on?
In the no. Yeah, yeah. I try not to give it too much context. So you want, like, I find what I found effective is you want early wins. You want an MVP. It's like real software development. It's like if you hire a dev team and you say, I want to like build Microsoft Word, and like, oh, no, I want to make it like just a notepad app. And then later we can add like syntax highlighting or fonts and stuff. So this is another, maybe it should be part of the 10 commandments or suggestions. Don't tell it too many things. Like ideally one thing. As soon as you add two things, your chance of success drops. It might not be much, depending on what those two things are, but they're much more effective if they're not distracted by a sort of an auxiliary or ancillary requirement. Do you agree, Damien?
Yeah, I ran that this morning where I get like, I'm in the same place. Like, just do these cheap things. And it's like, no, I just muddied it. Like, shit, do the one thing.
Okay, cool. Notice other thing because it doesn't care. You're not gonna hurt its speed.
Yeah. Do you say thank you though and please?
Yes. I do.
Yeah, it's
Especially when it gets a wit. I'm gonna try and reinforce it.
yeah, like
Yeah.
so it struggles on strange things. CSS, they have a real hard time with designy stuff.
They won't 100% build it all. I don't think.
No?
Not but my experience when I try to ask it to, it's like a color of something where like especially with like borders and overlaid and stuff like that with Tailwind, if it gets big enough, if the project doesn't know how to do it from my experience.
You have some CSS people, so like so that no, that's that too. But that does help us be able to variable so that right.
Yeah. Yeah, no one to try that because yeah, it's super annoying to try and get design friends, but right, just for
One thing I struggled with getting the design here, like getting the idea across. So I don't know if it was captured in the screencast, but one thing that I find kind of helpful is to go to an image generative AI and have it design the thing, copy and paste that graphic into here. So this will accept like files and images, and say now create. Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah, in Grok. Oh yeah, okay, this is for something else. I was trying to do a cool background graphic that you guys would think is amazing, but it ended up not working. Yeah, anyways, So take the image, create a plain vanilla index.html and style.css. So this is not a SvelteKit. Create that first, and then tell the agent, look at this file and create this. This is the file to follow. So it's sort of like step by step, and that's where these huge leaps, they can't connect too many dots. So if you do it incrementally, I found more success that way. Yep. 5 minutes. Okay. And that's good enough. That's pretty much almost where I ended up. I don't know why it did this weird in the design, but it's a mystery. Let's sorry, one more question. Yeah.
you have help it out in the middle of all of this. Like it's spent 10 cycles trying to understand between vertical and horizontal. You just like, oh, I just go in, I'll do it.
Yeah, I didn't want to for this because I was trying to see how much I could accomplish without actually touching the code. And oh, it's actually not done. Yeah, the pie looks strange. But yeah, I do. Sometimes it's just like, put it there. Okay, done. Like, so a couple more slides maybe, and then we can wrap up this part of it. Let's see. And it's online, by the way, Planet-Trivia. Yeah, actually the whole thing. Oh, the slides? Sure. Yeah, I'm recording this for YouTube. So this will go on my YouTube channel. Rene the Curious is the handle. Hardware. What's going to change in our professional lives? Well, it already has actually. So a lot of the code we're generating, or is being generated for us, is ironically being made on GPUs, right? Typically NVIDIA. The more powerful hardware that's specifically trained for language transform operations, that's used by like Grok Cloud, for example. They do custom silicon where they're embedding CPU memory on the same wafer, kind of like the M processors in Macs. They're not the only ones though. Memory bandwidth is a huge thing. So and then photonic CPUs, which are already on their way and starting to come into production. Software, I think this is where things are really going to get interesting and exciting, is with agentic terminals. I tried Claude Code. It was interesting. It's also kind of expensive. Like if you're just playing around with it, like you can rack up like $10 in 10 minutes. Now, if your boss is paying for it, maybe that's fine, but I'm self-employed, so it's not okay. But as they get cheaper and faster, I think this is going to be the thing to watch. Warp, Gemini, CLI, Claude Code, likely OpenAI will have an announcement like later this afternoon for their version. And that's it. So, any questions?
Great question, great responses, great discussions happening. Thank you, Renee. I think, are you hanging around?
Yep.
Okay, we've got 30 minutes of networking. So if you all want to find out, Renee, just carry on. Don't enter the room until he's answering your questions. But thank you very much. It was a fun.
Thank you. It was fun.
That was great.
And thanks for your input over here.